Okay, according to board policy, before we start the meeting, I need to make the announcement that we will have one speaker, Mr. David Fonkelsrud, speaking on 3 items to the agenda. He's already been addressed, so there will be a 5-minute limit on the comments. And we usually not try to, we'll say 1 minute to let you know 1 minute, and then this time at the end. So, okay. Call the meeting to order. Please call the roll.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Next item will be the statement by the board vice president.
As we begin this meeting, let us pause for a 60-second moment of silence to reflect, meditate, pray, or engage in any other silent activity. Thank you.
Okay, next item will be the Pledge of Allegiance led by Board Clerk, Mr. Randy Roulette.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Great job, Ms. Roulette.
Thank you.
Nice work.
Next item, number 4, will be the discussion or the approval of the July 20th meeting minutes. Any discussion?
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Next item will be discussion, motion to approve the special boarding meetings from July 29th. Any discussion or questions?
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Next item, Ms. Brassfield. Whenever we see you, you seem to bring good news, so that's nice to see you. Very nice to see you.
Thank you. What, can I take this off or?
Yes.
Donna, if you-
Yeah.
wait a minute. Okay. Dr. Vinson, President Allen, members of the board, I'm here that you approve the AT&T grant in the amount of $20,000 to provide meals and snacks for students during the weekend. Ms. Dice wrote this wonderful grant that's going to target our at-risk students, or low-income students.
It's amazing. Go ahead.
So make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. I know we had a representative of AT&T here, Mr.
Yes.
Cooper, I believe.
Mr. Cooper.
Mike Cooper?
Yes.
Yeah.
There he is.
We
Thank
wanna-
you very much.
Thank you, Mr.
Mike.
Cooper.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Dice, for
Yes.
facilitating that.
Thanks for the hard work. It got a special place in my heart for those kids. Next item, number 7, will be comments from the public. Ms. Hill, are you going to have the clock on so he can see that, or just to give him?
I'll be very
You good? Okay. Just want to help you out.
Thank you. My name is David Fonkelsrud. I have a son that attends Broken Arrow Public Schools. I just wanted to make a few comments. First one being on the COVID response and the delayed start of the school year. I think that There was no need to do that, especially considering that the data says that 99.65% of Broken Arrow is COVID-free. I think that we should be educating our students. I don't think that last year's, since March, I don't think it was an appropriate response to just end school early. And the virtual instruction was pretty poor in my opinion. I think we could do better. And we have had time, and we should have come up with a plan to do better by now. We should have opened school as scheduled. So our next topics are for item 23. I would like to know why you believe that a football game that is going to occur on August, 29th, is more important than classroom instruction. I would like an answer to that. I think if you're going to have a football game, you can have class. And that is on to items 21 and 22. The expenditures for cross-country track. If we don't have class at that time, those events should not take place. Classroom instruction is more important than sports. And if you don't want to educate, then you should abdicate your positions. We should educate or abdicate. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, next item will be the approval of the general consent items.
Make a motion to approve?
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second, please call the roll.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Next item is 41. Dr. Vincent.
Sure. Okay, so I'm going to just start this off by saying what we hate more than anything is that we're in this place right now. As was stated, we're educators. We are not epidemiologists. We are not doctors, not that kind of doctor. And each superintendent, not just in Oklahoma, but across the entire nation, is in an awful position right now. And we hate that we're here right now, and we know that we can't make everyone happy. But we would like to, first of all, present the data from our zip codes in Broken Arrow, and then we'll go through that decision to delay and what tied into that. It's not just about the data around COVID, it's also around the response that we've had to our virtual education. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ashley Bowser. He's going to present the most recent data from COVID-19 from this last week.
Okay, fantastic.
Dr. Vincent, President Allen, members of the board. I'm just want to share a little bit of information with you. I've given part of you, or part of that information in printed material for you to kind of have a deeper dive or a look at, but the slides will basically follow that information. So this first slide, which is more detailed in the spreadsheet you have in front of you, provides each zip code. And basically what we have started doing as a team is tracking spread to determine if there's community spread in Broken Arrow, specifically looking at zip code data. And so each of these 6 zip codes feed into Broken Arrow. Either they're mostly encompassed in Broken Arrow proper, or they are different zip codes that we serve. For example, 74134 is a Tulsa area zip code, but it's up by Country Lane, that area, Centennial area, that would feed into Broken Arrow Public Schools. 74429 is a part of Coweta that we serve. that feeds into Broken Arrow Public Schools because of where the boundary is. And then 74015 is Catoosa. It's up by the northeast part of the school district boundary that feeds into Broken Arrow. We feel like this provides a holistic view of all of the kids that feed into BAPS. And so that's why we're doing that tracking of the data. And really what matters are new cases. Not active cases, but new cases, because that's what tracks community spread. And so all of this is designed for us to be able to figure out, is COVID-19 increasing in the area or decreasing? And so that's what all this data is designed to do. Specifically, on that first page, the chart on your left, it more specifically does a composite of all of the zip codes in Broken Arrow. So it tracks the cases over the last several days, and the far right-hand column provides a running average, 7-day average per 100,000 that kind of tells you sort of the trend or exactly where we are. So on August 6th, we were at 34.99 cases per 100,000 with our zip codes, and that has then on the 7th it moved to 39.78 and has stayed relatively static for the past several days. Now, relatively static in this case is not a good thing because that means it's continuing to spread. You know, a lot of times we look at charts or whatever, and I'll provide a graph here in a little bit. But a lot of times we look at charts and go, well, if we could just flatline it. Well, really, a flat line in this case just means it's continuing to spread at the same rate. What we need to do is be able to decrease it, to decrease the spread overall. And I'll talk about that specifically when we get to that particular slide. This slide, and I don't think this slide is necessarily in your packet, but this talks about, it's just looking at new cases, and it refers to Tulsa County, Wagner County, which both feed into Broken Arrow Public Schools, the city of Broken Arrow, as well as our zip codes, because we feel like it's important to take a composite look of everything. You know, just looking at zip codes gives us some level of data. But then looking at the city data gives us another barometer, and then looking at the county data helps us as well to make an overall decision about, are things trending uniquely up for us? Are they trending up for everybody? I mean, what does that whole picture look like? When you take out, the next slide is interesting because when you take out Tulsa and Wagner counties and you're just looking at the zip code data versus the city data, you can see that, and all this, like I said, all this information is in the handout that I gave to you, but you can see that there are cases that they're continue to increase each and every day, that there are new cases. So if you actually, on page 2 of the handout that I gave you, if you'll look at the city of Broken Arrow proper, the 7-day average for the last 7 days is actually 40.19, which is higher than our zip code average. So unfortunately, 74012 is the highest incident rate in the state of Oklahoma as far as zip codes are concerned. So that's a lot of what factors into the decision. If you also look at the couple of other things that I just want to make you aware of on that second page, you have some data for Wagner County as well as Tulsa County. Again, this factors in a lot of students and people that aren't ours. Okay, but I think it's important for us to take a holistic view and look at it across the way. So we can look at our data as well as this holistic data and what does it tell us. And so this last chart, I think, is the most important thing for you, out of everything that I'm talking about here. So what I've done here is on this chart, the green line represents the city of Broken Arrow. The blue line represents our zip code data. The orange-brown line represents Tulsa County, and then the line at the bottom, the darker blue line, represents Wagner County. And these are all incidences of new cases per 100,000 over the course of the last 7 days, the 7-day average. So you can see the 7-day average for the city of Broken Arrow, as well as Broken Arrow zip codes from 8.6 to 8.10, and then for the counties from 8.8 to 8.10. And that's only because I, frankly, was started tracking the data, the counties, a little bit later than I started tracking zip codes in the city of Broken Arrow. And this, to me, this is where this is, to me, is just probably the most important element, just because, like I said, it looks appealing in that it's a flat line, but that just means the incident rate of spread has been the same. So it just continues to spread as far as the number of new cases. And so ideally, what we need is a decline, which would represent a decrease in spread. And ultimately, you would want no lines on the chart at all, which means it isn't here at all. So anyways, I hope that makes sense in terms of all of that data. Our goal is to try and really provide the leadership team as well as the board with the best data that we know that we can provide, so that we can make the best decisions that we can for our staff and students. You know, when I talked in the special board meeting a week and a half ago, one of the things I really felt like was really important is that we're all here to serve the staff and the students of our community, and we want to make the best decisions that we can. And as Dr. Vinson said, I'm not a health expert. I'm an educator. I'm a speech and debate guy, you know, and I can teach kids how to argue, but I also am concerned for their safety. I want to share with you one other element that isn't anywhere on this data. Because I know a couple of board members, you asked me about nursing homes, so I wanted to delve into the data regarding nursing homes. And here's what I found out. In Broken Arrow, there are a lot more nursing homes and assisted living facilities than I anticipated, frankly. But in digging into the state's data, there were only 7 of those facilities that had positive cases since the tracking of the governor's data that they release. In those 7 facilities, in the past 7 days, there have been 7 positive cases. I know it's a lot of 7s, but that's just the way it worked out. So, and all 7 of those cases were in the 74012 zip code. And so when I factored those cases out, just to see what it would do, if you go back to the front page, I can give you a quick comparison of the data. And I know it's a lot of numbers, but the front page, if you look at 74012, the new cases is right now is 42.47. If you took those 7 cases out, it would drop it to 40.73. So it's not, I mean, obviously that could be a huge deal if we were looking between orange and yellow, and maybe even orange 1 and orange 2. You know, when you're talking about 2.5 cases per 100,000, it could really make a significant difference. Unfortunately, 40.47 is closer. I mean, the state identifies red as 50 and above. So I think that is the concern, is that we're moving closer and closer to red. So.
Mr. Bowser, where would you, in case people don't know, where are you getting this data? Where are you?
So all of this data, that's a great question. All of this data I'm taking straight from the State Department of Health's website. They publish it every single day, and you have to capture it that day. Otherwise, it's replaced by a new data download. And so, but you can actually capture the data by city, by zip code, by county. Even the health department has certain other counties that they sort of, a way that they divide the state, that I don't pull the data that way. But and so it's just a matter of capturing that, and then basically the way that these statistics are figured is that you have to look at zip codes and population of zip codes. That data, I will admit, is it's taken from the government's website, and it's extrapolated, right? Because the last time we had a full census was 2010, and so they're estimating populations and all of that kind of thing. And hopefully after 2020, we'll have an accurate census to be able to have solid, accurate numbers. But what I will tell you is that the instances of estimating the populations of zip codes, I found 2 different data sources, and they were within 1,000 people of each other. So I felt like the numbers we're using are pretty good. Again, I'm not a census or a census tracker, but I feel pretty reliable about those numbers.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Bowser, 74134, now where was that at again within our?
So that's a Tulsa zip code. That primarily, that's where we get students for. If you think about where Centennial and Country Lane are, right across the street is the 74134 zip code. I forget the.
Is that Battle Creek? No. What is that?
It kind of does a loop around Battle Creek.
Trinity Creek.
There we
yes.
go. I knew there was a creek in there somewhere.
So do we know within that, are we able to tell within that zip code of our students are the percentage?
I'm not. And the state doesn't release that data, Mr. Allen. That's a great question. What I can tell you is in that zip code, the estimated population in that zip code is 15,083 people. And then I use that factor to be able to then evaluate the number of new cases as a result.
So that's the entire population for the whole zip?
For that zip code. I don't know how many of those kiddos attend Broken Arrow Public Schools. There's not a good way to drill down and get that granular.
Well, and that would be a violation of their HIPAA rights too, to know that.
If you're not identifying the kid, though, you're just looking at the number of zip code of those kids in your district, why would, I mean?
Well, so it's identifying the population in that zip code.
Right, so
Right.
we've got 15,000 people.
Right.
And we look at our roster and go, well, we've got 12,000 from Broken Arrow in that zip code.
Right.
Are we able to do that?
Oh, yes. I can tell you how many kids, yes. If you want to know how many students come to BAPS
Yeah.
from that zip code, I can easily do that. Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that'd be helpful.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's not a problem. Happy to do that.
Because if we've only got 30% of the kids in that zip code,
Sure.
that are going to our district, but we're equating 100% of the number, it might be something we want to consider
Sure.
on those zip codes.
No, I totally understand what you're saying. Yeah. We could do, and we could, I mean, I wouldn't do it just for 74134. We could do it across.
Yeah.
If you would like a cross section of the whole district, every zip code, we could take all of our kids and I could tell you what percentage of our kids live here, what percentage of our kids
That
live
might be
here.
helpful.
Okay. Yeah, happy to do that.
So what's the total population of these?
Of all the zip codes?
Yeah.
155,145.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, 155, 145.
So with these numbers, can you tell how many are actually currently positive in that whole area?
According to the data in front of you, 810, 489 cases, which would put, 489 cases.
In 155,000 people.
Yes, sir.
Did the board have any more questions for Mr. Bowser? So I was going to go ahead and summarize. Thank you, Mr. Bowser. I also wanted to point out, again, we're educators, and the State Department of Health, Harvard University, we have so many different voices in our ear that are giving us data and telling us when to make what call. It's difficult to discern which voice to listen to. But what I'm going to summarize now that went into our decision to delay is very important. First of all, Mr. Bowser was talking about accountability, and we are. It's part of one of our core values that we're accountable for our students and our staff. And so one of the issues we're running into right now is that we don't have all the PPE we need, and we're waiting to get that. I know that the governor has released that he's providing PPE. We're waiting for that delivery. We'll go get it if we need to. But that is a key factor. I want to give a shout out to Victory Church. They have provided 3,000 masks for our staff, so that's a huge huge dent in what we need. But we'd like to have enough masks to where we can provide them for students too, because we do know that students will show up and won't have them, and we want to make sure that they have what they need to be safe and healthy. Another key point I want to make is this just isn't just about being safe, but it's also about being successful. The worst thing that could happen is we start school in 2 days or even 24 hours later, we're shutting a site down. We want to make sure that we have a successful start. And Mr. Allen, you pointed out over and over in the last board meeting, you're exactly right, we've got to train. And we, we're confined by contract time and when we can do what. And so as soon as we get all of our staff here, we're going to hit the ground running. We've moved some of our PD days from later in the year up to the front of the school year so that we can train everyone significantly in the protocol on how to keep our staff and our kids healthy. And I've heard a lot of people saying, well, there's not that many incidents in kids and all of that. It's not just kids we have to keep safe, it's our staff too. And we have a significant amount of staff that are over 55. I mean, I'm 53, so I understand that the fear, and a lot of this it's about fear. But it's okay if other people get sick until it's a member in your family, and then it's not okay. So we're just trying to be really, really diligent. We do worry about our students who are at home right now. We worry about our students who don't have anyone at home. We worry about the kids who don't have enough to eat. We worry about the kids who got very, very little education because they either didn't have good internet service or they had no support at home. We worry about that at all, but we're also really confident that when we do get them in the classroom, we're going to be fine. Our teachers are amazing, our principals are amazing, and we're going to be fine. We just have to make it safe. So with the September 3rd date, I know a lot of people are concerned. They're like, oh, well, we're going to be going all the way in June. We're already looking at that calendar to see where we can make up time. And don't freak out and think, oh, we're going to lose our Christmas break. No, we're not. But we're looking at how we can make up time and try to get us out before June. So three factors that went into this decision. First of all, protocol, the training for the cleaning, planning. We've got to shift teachers. We currently have, I've got the number, 4,436 students enrolled in virtual education. So to put that in perspective, that would be like 1,000 more than is enrolled in our current Broken Arrow High School, which is the largest high school in the state, enrolling all in a very short amount of time. About 1,500 of them were just in the last 2 weeks. To be able to process all of that, it is a yeoman's task. We don't have the staff to do all that, because keep in mind that we have other people who are having to do their jobs. So we're trying to process that. We've moved people within our staff over to start processing those students as quickly as possible. It's not as simple as just clicking a button. You have to enroll them in the correct classes within our virtual platform. So 4,436, and again, that's 1,000 more.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's
Can you
good.
tell me what that number was again, please?
For the virtual?
Yes, ma'am.
4,436.
Thank you.
And it's about a 51-49 split of elementary to secondary, about 51% elementary, 49 secondary. So first, protocol. Second, planning. We've got to shift teachers to follow those students so that we can serve them well. And last is preparation. The schedules for those 4,400 students so that we can take care of them. And as Mr. Bowser pointed out, we had all 5 of our Broken Arrow zip codes increase. Honestly, you kind of kick yourself. You think you're doing a great thing by choosing to follow the zip codes, and then I'll be darned if all 5 of them didn't increase last week, which indicates accelerated spread. And we have to listen to our health officials. We can't just say, sorry, health officials, we're not going to listen to you. According to the State Department plan right now, orange means we're not in school. It means we're virtual. I am not saying that's what we're going to do. I'm just saying that we're trying to be very cognizant and do things right so that we can have a safe start, but also a successful start where we won't be stopping and starting and stopping and starting, because that's awful to do to families. You cannot plan around that. I'm a mom, and I get it. You can't suddenly go, okay, now I got to find childcare for 3 days, and then my kids are back, and then they're out for 2 weeks, and it's a nightmare. Something else I wanted to kind of address is talking about the staggered schedule. I know we have a district close to us that has decided to do a staggered schedule. That's what works for that community. Our survey indicated that's not what our parents wanted. And then in conversations with the board, I know I talked to each one of you on the phone at least twice, maybe 4 times last week. But talking about the AB schedule, again, it's really hard for parents because that means your child would only be in school 2 days a week. And then what do you do the other 3 days? And who's going to be working with them while they're on the computer trying to keep up with classes? I just want you to be cognizant of all the conversations and the thought process. I think one of the bright spots in this is because we had such a significant enrollment in virtual, our Broken Arrow High School numbers are down. So with all those students going to virtual, we're going to be able to space out kids some more, and that's a positive thing. That combined with masks, I think we're going to be able to do this well. I really applaud the families for making the decision that's best for them. We are all so passionate about what we think and what we believe, and I love that our community is so passionate about our schools and education, because it would be awful to be somewhere where you're not. But just keep in mind that as passionate as you are, there's someone else that's just as passionate the opposite direction. We're doing the best we can to try to serve everyone and try to do it right. So at this point, we really don't think we're going to do a staggered schedule. We want to start in person. We want to do it right. We want to have everything lined up to where we have the cleaning supplies in place, the PPE in place, the training in place, and our kids where they're supposed to be, and enrollment. We don't want them showing up in classes and their schedules are messed up. We want to have it right. Now, this is probably a dark spot. So last week alone, we had 33 staff members that tested positive for COVID. And so what that means is we currently have 98 COVID-related leave absences, 98, so close to 100. That's a big dent for us. That's difficult for us because that means someone else has to step in and do that job. I know we hate it for those families too because it's scary. It's very scary. So all that to say, our priority is a safe and successful start. And, we made these decisions through a lot of deliberation. I, as a superintendent, take responsibility for those decisions, because at the end of the day, I have to make that choice. This is frightening to a lot of people, and it's just frustrating to others. But keep in mind, we're doing the best we can. We're making the best decisions we can with the information we have in front of us. Regardless about how you feel about all of this, just keep in mind that this is about making sure that kids are happy when they hit the buildings and we have everything ready for them and they feel ready to go, and that our staff feels safe. So I am absolutely open to hearing the board's comments, suggestions. We will change as we need to. We just want to start, again, in a safe and successful way.
Dr. Benson, obviously we're setting our goal at September 3rd, opening in person. Is there a number, or when you were looking at this data, that we're going to be like, oh, we can go, or this number that we're like,
Well,
is there a set number that we're looking for?
Yeah, honestly, I think the number would be below the 14.39, because then you'd be in the yellow.
Okay.
And that's a beautiful thing. You've heard that Bartlesville schools are starting on time. They're in the yellow. I mean, they're in a great spot. And, regardless about how you feel about, wearing masks, not wearing masks, if we can just slow the community spread in Broken Arrow, that's how we get kids in school. That's how we do it. That's the bottom line. That and training our teachers and getting them ready to go, and PPE. It's like the trifecta of things that we need. So that would be the but if we can get to where, as Mr. Bowser said, we're on a downward trend for 7 days, that's what we need.
Okay.
Because remember, we're looking at trend lines. At 1 day of data, not good. I also want to applaud him for looking at 3 pieces of data, because in research we call that triangulation. And if you can see triangulation and it's all saying basically the same thing, then you can rely on your data. But if you have them all 3 saying different things, their trend line's then it's not as reliable.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Vinson, one thing that I think that we talked about the last meeting, or when we were talking about this, is can you elaborate on some of the differences or advantages that Broken Arrow has compared to some of the other school districts around the state as it relates to cleaning?
Absolutely.
Our engineered water, or some of the equipment that we have. that also feeds into some of this decision-making?
I would love to elaborate, and I may actually call on some of my staff member who are
Please.
experts in this, but we have basically 3 different methodologies we're using that other districts don't. I know we've had a lot of hype around Clorox 360, but to be honest, we ordered the chemicals for Clorox 360 back in February, is that correct? And they're still not in. So districts that are highly reliant on chemicals or cleaning products that involve chemicals, they're not getting them in, and that's really, really difficult to keep a safe and sterile environment if you don't have those materials. So we have 2 different other things that we use, and one of them is BOS, correct? And this is what I'm going to call these boys up because they know it better than I do. But BOS and then the engineered water. And I do know that the engineered water, a lot of people think, well, it's just water, but that what it makes it different is the treatment that we do. And that's where the teacher training comes in, because if you don't use it correctly, it's not going to be effective. But if you do, it's 1.5 times more effective than bleach. So thank you so much.
So you want to know a little about Tersano. So basically, Tersano is an engineered water. It's Tersano, it's SAO. It's been around. We've been using it for 4 years in the district. We started with it at Liberty Elementary. We did a year-long study with it there. It's been a great product for us. It's a disinfectant. It's a cleaner, sanitizer. Again, it's been tested for the surrogate of COVID-19. So right now, that's what all chemicals are going by, is by the surrogate, because there's actually not a way to test for COVID just yet. So that's, any other questions about Tersano? Or
Surrogate, was that SARS?
yes, SARS number 2.
Is that being used in all the schools and all the sites?
It is currently, yes, sir. We have 10 more on order to fill out the high school. We have 3 at the high school right now. We have 1 at Freshman Academy. We have 10 on order. So we'll put 6 more at the high school, an additional 3 at Freshman Academy. But all of our elementaries, all our ECCs, all of our middle schools all have them.
Can you get it quickly? I mean,
They're
on
on
order, right?
They're on order. I'm hoping it'll be here within a week or so. I mean, we're good to start. Like I said, we have one in every space that we can take care of.
Just because I was in the committee meeting when you went over this, and I feel like there's a lot that needs to go out to the public, so they have some sort of security in feeling that their kids are coming to school in a clean, sterile environment. We talked about the Clorox wipes and how they're on back order. We don't need those, right?
Correct.
Because what we have now is sufficient. It's better than those Clorox wipes.
That is correct.
And that's what separates us from the other districts currently at this time.
Exactly. What we're going to give out to our teachers or put out to all of our staff, especially teachers, if we use a Clorox wipe, then we still have the issue of that getting into a child's hand. It's still a chemical. They can ingest that into their mouth. It comes off of their desk, off of door handles, anything that they can touch. With using the Tersano, and so what we're going to do is give each teacher a spray bottle every morning that will be of Tersano, and then they'll actually have disposable microfiber wipes for each day. Each teacher will receive a box of those, and when those are out, then we'll replenish those. And our custodial staff will replenish the Tersano water on a daily basis for them, so it is a disinfectant every day.
But there's a fill station at each school, correct?
Correct.
So that's what, I mean, I sit here and listen to all this the other day, and, just, for example, of what's being used out there, there's a whole list of companies that are using it today, and that's how they're able to stay open through all this. And it's like Domino's, McDonald's, Kimberly-Clark, Google, Microsoft, Samsung. I mean, there's like 50 of these listed on here that's on their
correct.
website that states, and that's what they're using. So, again, I just feel it's very important that everybody understands that we're ready to open up as far as the hygiene part and the
Correct.
safety precautions to keep clean. Even if we have an incident where there is a true exposure that takes place, you can clean that whole school in how long?
Within 4 hours, we can make it ready. We can disinfect everything, and even if we need to treat with an electrostatic sprayer, we have handheld and backpack electrostatic sprayers that will use BioSCU in after cleaning everything as well. And so within 4 hours, we can do a school.
So a lot of concerns I get from people that email me or talk to me in discussions is if we are able to do the A/B schedule, it gives a day for thorough cleaning, but in fact, we're able to do it every day, and that should be in the plan to do it every single day.
Correct. And this isn't really something new for us. We've been doing it all along. If we've had a flu outbreak, or we've had, a few years ago, we had a C. diff outbreak at an elementary school, we went in as an infectious group that we had together and took care of that school and cleaned it so it was ready for the next day for school.
I think the main difference now is that prior to this, it was staff that was already trained in using that.
Correct.
Whereas now we're going to put it in the hands of teachers, so we just want to make sure they are ready and know how to use it properly. Because we have seen incidents where people thought they knew how to use it and they weren't using it right. So we've got to make sure that that training is really, really good.
And how does this tie into maybe the transportation piece as well too? Because we just talked about the classrooms, but can you elaborate a little bit on the transportation piece?
Mr. Morgan.
So what we're planning to do is that obviously we have what are called runs, and then we have the route groups. So we have 3 runs in the morning, 3 in the afternoon. So at the end of each run, we're going to spray and treat all of the high touch points with the same disinfectant that Mr. Abbott's going to use for the buildings. And then at the end of each routing period, so in the middle of the day and then after the afternoon routes, we'll treat every bus that we use with the electrostatic sprayer.
And I'd heard something about in some of our subcommittees where you all had talked about the bus drivers, how we're protecting those folks as well too, especially knowing the age bracket and things that we have in place for that. And I know this may be out there, but if you could talk to that'd really be beneficial as well too.
Yes. Well, they'll have masks on, first of all. And then at the top of the stairs of each bus, we're installing a hand sanitizing station for all the kids to use. Then we're going to try to space the kids as much as we can on the bus. And we're going to leave the seats behind the driver open so that they don't have that kid right next to them. And then we're going to open the windows and roof hatches to get the best possible air ventilation that we can.
What about, what if it's 50, 40 degrees outside or 30 degrees?
Yeah.
Still gonna have the windows open?
Yeah. Buses are very warm usually. The heaters are very good in those. And so what we plan to do is just open the windows at the back of the bus and the front of the bus so we still get the ventilation. It just wouldn't be every window open.
The bus driver's going to have face shields also.
Yes, I have face shields and masks provided.
Okay. And then there's a fan also in front of the.
Yeah, I believe every bus has at least one. Some of our newer buses have as many as 3 fans at the front.
That are going to blow. Because I asked the question of why we don't put a piece of plexiglass like you see at McDonald's or everywhere else, and it's against federal law to be able to do that.
Yeah, none of that's been approved for school buses yet.
But that fan is going to create almost like a positive ventilation on them that's going to create a barrier for an added protection. And that's from what I learned at the committee meeting the other day. She was speaking of that, and as far as that fan, it's constantly blowing on them to keep whatever tries to get it, invasive towards that bus driver is just going to blow it off of them. It's just an added protection of the barrier.
Right, and the driver has a window right next to them too, so that helps that too.
The fan was also a recommendation from our infectious disease doctor that has been, the team of doctors that have been advising us. So.
These are things that, part of that training and having the confidence to open these doors. And to me, we don't need to defend why we're open it. We need to explain to everybody why we're able to. We are ahead of the game as far as protecting and cleaning and doing things. We've got a protocol. We've got a safety plan in place. And that's what needs to be let out to the public. We're ready to open as far as the hygiene part goes. And as far as the plan goes, everybody needs to be up to speed on this before we do.
It's mainly it's the training and resorting our kids, because we've had such a great response to our virtual ed that we've got to resort them, get them all re-enrolled, and that takes some time. And then, of course, we've got to.
2 weeks?
Yes, that's part of it. That's a huge part of it. And of course, we've got to see that downward trend too in the cases. Our trend line's going up, and we had told the public if it was going up, we're not doing that. So we've got to watch it.
I know that I was just kind of curious, and it just struck me. I should have probably asked Mr. Bowser this, but I know we started tracking this looking at the 7-day averages. Do we know how this compares to like 2 weeks ago or a month ago?
Oh, I'm sorry. Ashley.
I don't have really good information. We can always refer back to the Oklahoma State Department of Health and their COVID alert system, but that
And I also can't underemphasize the fact that we did have so many staff members test positive this week, and so we're giving them some time to recover so that we can start fully staffed and everybody be healthy. 98 people out right now with COVID-related leave.
Well, I don't think COVID's going away. I mean, so whatever your plan is to address it as we move forward throughout the year, I think that's something that you guys will need to look
Absolutely.
at and develop over the next 14 days or whatever that time frame is, because like it's not going anywhere. It's obvious by the numbers. Who knows what's going to happen in flu season, how that comes back at. But our plan that we put, that you all put out said, if we're in red, we're not going in person. We're going distance learning.
Mhm.
We have one county now, or zip code. You said something about a number earlier that when I think Ms. Brandy asked a question, but what, do we know exactly what we're going to tell the public that is? I mean, if it's red, it's red. We go distance learning. If it's, I mean,
I'm comfortable, I look to the board also for guidance, but I'm comfortable once we get through these 2 weeks of getting the training, getting our kids sorted, everything in place, I'm comfortable opening unless we're in red. If we're in red, we can't. But we've got to have these factors in place or else
Sure.
we won't be successful. And we all know that, every kid gets one first grade year, they get one senior year. So we want them to have a really great start. And starting and then having to shut down 2 days later is not a great start.
you got people on one side, the other side. I think what you guys have done such a great job of with your plan is you provided options to the community.
Mhm.
So with the options to the community, I don't understand why people might be complaining when, if you don't like option A, you go to option B, and then, because the state of Oklahoma, the state board did not provide us with the decision to tell us what to do. Like you said, we're not doctors, neither is the board. We're unpaid elected officials by the public, so without them telling us, I think we need to listen to the people that voted for us and allow them that option to make that localist decision possible that's best for their kids, and we're providing the safest place for them to do that. If it's in school they want, we provide in school. If it's virtual they want, we provide the virtual like we've done. But again, we are elected officials. None of us are doctors. You know what? Let's listen to the patrons who made the decisions. You provided the options for them. Let's allow them to do it. As long as you got a date that says, if we're in red, we can't do it, we have to go here. I think we have a wonderful plan. I think we stick with it and we go and let our parents make the best decision for their children. And we're going to do it. And you've already talked about how you have the precautions in place to provide the safest work environment for our teachers, and we're going to continue to do that. No one wants anyone to get hurt or be sick or anything.
Right.
But it's not going away. Do we just throw our hands up and say we're not going to have school no more, now virtual school is the way to go? We can't do that. That is not, if we do it, our public school system is going to fail. If we decide that's what we're going to do. So I'm just saying that the plan you put together is a wonderful plan, and I think we stick with that plan and we'll allow our parents to make the decisions.
So am I hearing you say that you're comfortable with us using this time to train?
Absolutely.
And start on September 3rd?
Absolutely, I
Okay.
am.
And
But
I
I think
definitely wanna
you
add-
stick to your plan like you put together for us with the red, the orange, the yellow. You play that out, you provided the options for the parents, you have the parents to make the decision.
Well, and I do want to say to the parents, I hate that we're delaying. Lord knows I want my kids back in school too. They're driving me nuts. But we've got to make sure that everyone is ready to go and that we have a successful start, or else it's going to set the tone for the entire remainder of the year. We know this in education. If you have a bad start, the rest of the year is a little rough. So we're going to do everything we can to make sure it's successful and we keep everybody healthy, as healthy as we can. Of course, we can't control factors that happen outside the school building, but we can do whatever we can in our buildings to make sure that especially some of our most at-risk populations are not harmed.
And so, Mr. Allen, you said that we offered an A solution and a B solution, but we also offered a C solution, which
Yep.
is a blended model.
Yep.
And so that falls into the extra work of creating these schedules for these kiddos
Sure.
because they want to take core classes online, but maybe come to the school for speech and debate.
Yes.
There's so many logistics that go into getting 436 schedules just
Agreed.
right. And so that's, along with COVID, is a huge reason for the delay. And I don't think, I don't think enough is said about that part of it.
To put it in perspective, that's larger than our high school. So high school starts enrollment all the way back in like February, March.
Yes.
Really February, when we start putting schedules together. It takes us all that time until we start school in the fall to have everyone where they are. And if you've ever been a parent of a high school student, you know that chances are they have a schedule changer
Yes.
or 6 before school starts. So Mr. Lett's exactly right. We have got to individualize each one of these students and make sure they're in the right
Sure.
spot.
And I think you're doing a wonderful job providing extra training. I mean, I'm okay with the delayed. I just think you stick to your plan when you get to that date and to execute your plan and allow our parents to make the best decision possible. And I know you all and your staff are going to work very hard to provide the safest work environment. So I
Absolutely.
think-
And we're also going to do everything in our power to make sure we gain back some of that time so that, no one wants to go to school all the way into June. But we also want to make sure that our kids learn what they need to before school's out. So,
I just need some clarification before we leave here today, is that, do you have everything that you need to be confident to open the doors?
the last thing we need is PPE. That huge bulk of PPE that is supposed to be coming from the governor's office or from the state, we've got to have that because we need to be able to provide that for our students.
And what is that PPE?
Masks. We need masks.
Okay.
Because we're prepared for students to show up without masks. And again, it's not always about the kids, it's about keeping our staff healthy.
Do we have an expectation of when, do we have an anticipation or expectation when that's supposed to be here?
Yeah, it was,
Or was it already supposed to be
We're
here?
supposed to be getting it from the health department. Ms. Newman actually contacted, go ahead.
And Mr. Blackburn actually emailed today, so it should be any time. We're just waiting for confirmation.
So maybe if we have, I don't know if we can put, as a board or whatever, if we need to put pressure on someone, maybe we have a fail date of, if, 3 days from now, we still don't have an answer, or let's say today's Monday, if by Thursday we don't have an answer. Maybe you can let the board know, and then we can rally as a board. I have no problem picking up the phone, calling the governor, calling the Department of Health or whoever in order to make this happen, because if that's a fail for us to start school, that's silly that we
It
cannot
is.
have that. We cannot have that happen. So
Yes.
I would say day by day, if by Thursday, if you can let us know.
And we're glad to even take a box truck wherever we need to go pick this
Oh,
stuff up.
absolutely.
We just don't know where it is. We don't know.
Right.
And I can't imagine what a huge task that is at the state
I
level to
get that.
figure that out, but we are happy to go pick it up.
I always get in trouble.
The task or the burden that we have, and I don't even know what the proper terminology is going to be, but simply, we have lost confidence from some of the parents and school students and stuff. So we need to point blank reassure them that what we're doing, so they have a true understanding, so they're confident in what that school is going to start, and that we truly want to start. And we're not following what the other schools are doing, or what the other superintendents are doing. Our plan is we are set to open, we're prepared to open, we have a plan. We just need to make sure that everything is set in place so we succeed, not fail.
I always look for the silver lining because I'm a glass half full person. If nothing else, this has drawn so much attention on the importance of public education and what a service we provide. Because you're exactly right. Without that, it's like entire communities crumble without that service. So that's the positive. And I can assure you, we're going to do everything in our power to get those doors open.
Well, I definitely want to reiterate something Mr. Allen said as well too, and that is, I truly think the plan that you all put together, that we talked about, is an incredible, comprehensive, thorough plan. And I think, with our community and what our survey told us, this is the right plan. And I think, going in the door using the phases that you all had said are our points of decision-making, I think that stands. I'm willing to put my position on the line with that because, again, I feel confident that you all went through it and was very thorough from a staff, from a student, from bus driver, everybody that's involved. It was amazing the details that you all went to, so I really believe and feel confident that that's the right answer. And it does give options to parents, whether you want to go virtual, whether you want a hybrid, where you want to be in person. And that's what we need to do.
Well, and I have to applaud our team on that, and the lion's share was on, let's be real, it's instructional services and operations, because that's where most of those things fell. HR did a great job of being able to provide testing for our folks, so it's a quick turnover. You're showing COVID symptoms, 15 minutes later you have a test, or test results. So it's all those pieces that come together to make that work.
Certainly. Good. Yeah.
But I think the hardest decision, Dr. Vincent, you're going to make is starting school up in person.
Yeah.
But you know what? I think it's the right decision, because if we give it a shot, and obviously we don't want anyone to get hurt. That's not our intention, is to help kids, and we give it a shot. And if we have to go to the distance learning, we go to it. But at least everyone is trained up and ready to go when we do that. And to assure our families that it will not be like it was in the spring.
Yeah.
And we've had that training, we're ready to go with that. I think we're going to be okay. And if we have the numbers that support not doing it, at least we gave it a shot to bring our kids back into school and at least get them some sort of normalcy in the educational process that they need. And I do have one question. Are you with the virtual, are you extending that, or is it cut off on the sign-up day?
19th is when it ends.
Okay.
So we're still accepting students
Okay.
until the 19th. And another key factor that makes the virtual a little bit different this time is those students are assigned to a teacher within their school. And that teacher is actually going to be housed at their school. So if my child's virtual, but they are going to school at Wolf Creek normally, then the Wolf Creek teacher is assigned to them. That way, once this is over, and it's going to be over, but when it's over, that child can transition so smoothly back into that school, and they have a classroom teacher that's assigned to them and have that personal relationship with them.
But I think another point,
That's virtual.
I think another point that you all made the last meeting, the difference between our distance learning back in spring or whatever, the difference that I remember you saying was there were no new concepts being trained or taught at that time. It was a survival mode of something that was completely reactionary. Our distance learning going ahead, it's planful. We have things laid out. We have training that is being done. So that's going to be a stark difference then, and there's new concepts being taught along this way. So
And
that is
grades
the
being
stark
taken.
difference between spring and what we're doing now.
Yes, exactly. And grades being taken. It is just like normal school, only it's being conducted online.
So
We
go
did-
ahead, I'm sorry. I apologize.
We didn't get to make that decision back in the spring.
No, we
didn't.
That was made for us. This is our baby. We get full control of what goes on. But just because I know we've got a lot of people watching this thing, the Virtual Academy is offering every single class that our brick and mortar schools have.
Absolutely. And if I've heard a lot of questions about AP. If they need an AP course, absolutely it's
AP,
offered.
pre-AP. What about our special education? What is the plan on that?
So Carla, Ms. Dias, do you want to talk a little bit about special education, because that's pretty specialized?
So, level 1 students can be served through the virtual academy, just as normal. Level 2 and 3, you're actually going to do a distance learning plan for those students. But they can be full-time. It just, the virtual academy doesn't really meet their needs. So, Ms. Thornton and Ms. Brown have been meeting with all those parents and staff, and actually having IEPs for each student to do that. And then come up with their own plan.
Because
Okay.
keep in mind, our level 2 and 3, sometimes they're not always with level 2, but especially level 3, they're smaller numbers, so it's going to be a little bit more manageable. But I have to compliment our special education teachers and staff for taking that on, because that's a lot. But they also recognize the need, and that virtual is not necessarily a good solution, and they're not going to get the quality of education that we provide to our level 2 and 3 students through a virtual platform.
So just one final comment I would have to say is, John, I think you hit the nail on the head with the question is, I just want you, your staff, and everyone to know that if there is any obstacle, anything that comes up to where we think it's going to be impactful or that we're not able to perform or do what we need to or open school when it needs to, or that it's going to delay or anything, definitely please reach out to the board and let us know. And don't think that, oh my gosh, this is a failure, this is a mistake, let's have that full transparency and, just trust in each other, because my position is I want to remove every obstacle that's stepping in your way, whether it's head count, people, 98 people that went home. Let's be creative. I mean, we have an opportunity to where we can be creative. We may going to create some more gray hairs, have to spend some money over there, Miss Enough, a little bit just to address the needs or whatever it is. But again, I think with us moving forward and being planful, if there's anything that comes up, please be sure and let us know.
We will.
Dr. Vince, I got a question, because I know we get a lot of communications from parents and people around. What's the difference between the curriculum we're offering, either virtual or distance, versus what? Epic. Everyone's talking about Epic. What's the difference?
It's basically just a different platform. I mean,
The
when
advantage to come into Broken Arrow would be that you are still connected with the school. So they can participate in all our athletics, and the learning platform is an online learning platform either way. But our advantage is that they stay enrolled in Broken Arrow through our program. They're being taught by Broken Arrow teachers. They can be engaged in the school clubs and activities and athletics. So they're not leaving our district. They're still one of our students.
and they get a Broken Arrow diploma when they graduate.
So so someone says, well, that virtual platform at Epic's better than the one at BA.
No, and we did some heavy-duty shopping with all the different virtual platforms, and yeah, we have very big virtual platforms.
And we augment, by assigning them to a teacher in Broken Arrow, we also can augment that virtual platform any way we want to make it more meaningful for the student and to tie it back locally to our curriculum.
Because I think it's important for us to do this right, because there are people that are going to want to run and go to Epic, but there's no need to. But
No, and I would go back to what Ms. Dias said, is that blocks them from being able to participate in our extracurricular. I mean, if you want to be in the band, if you want to be in the show choir, you can be a virtual student and do that here. And when you walk across the graduation stage, you get a diploma that says Broken Arrow High School, not Epic.
so as we wind down the questions, or if anyone's got any more, so red is distance learning,
Red is-
based on your plan.
Red is distance learning.
But
And-
just
And
be-
we'll revert back to our plan of if we have positive cases within a classroom or a
Right.
school. That
We
will
can shut that
follow our plan.
We can shut the school down. and
We can shut the
move-
classroom, school, yeah.
So
But-
I just want to make a statement or make sure that people understand that we are not making decisions based on squeaky wheels. Not the group of people that comment the loudest or come at us the most or sing our praises or don't sing our praises. We're doing it based on data and getting these schedules ready for the kids.
Absolutely.
That's it.
And
Like,
getting teachers trained.
Trained.
The entire staff trained.
So it's although we listen, we have made our decision on what data we're looking at, and we want to get these kids in the school.
We do. We have to change the trend line in Broken Arrow, and then we have to get people trained and kids enrolled where they need to be.
And we have the resources not restricting us.
And once we get PPE, we do.
Once we get PPE.
Say we did hit red
Mhm.
and we had to go distance.
Mhm.
When do we go back? If it's, say, 7 days later, we're back into orange, are we just gonna switch back?
So we'll base that on a
do
week
this
to
back and
week.
forth?
Yeah, no, we need to have 2 weeks out of red before we'll come back. Because we don't want to do that where, oh, you need childcare this week, parent, now you don't this week, now you do this week. We need 2 consistent weeks to show that we're going to stay there.
But the teachers are going to be still come to the classroom?
Yes,
for the
teachers will be
distance
here.
learning. And that's why we made the purchase or approved the purchase of the webcams today.
Yes, the webcams are used for our teachers.
We have a solid plan.
Well, again, I can't thank the team enough. They've been
No,
amazing.
Absolutely.
They've worked
After my committee
nonstop.
meeting on Tuesday, I felt even more confident in what we have because of what's in place to protect the students and the teachers,
Yeah.
and the safety precautions and the safety resources that are available to them. It's just, we gotta get the training and we've gotta take it serious. We'd be naive to think that we're not gonna have somebody with COVID in one of our
Absolutely.
buildings. But we have a plan to handle that.
We do.
And so, you know,
We do.
it's a solid plan.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Great discussion. I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Next item, number 42. Ms. Kearns, numbers, name was with it.
Good evening. Our normal procedures, as you know, when I bring policies to you, is to have a first read and then an action vote the following board meeting. Every August, however, that we will have policies that need immediate action. That is either based on the RFR packets that we receive in July that tells us what we need to change based on recently passed legislation, or if we have an urgency. That urgency today would most certainly be a pandemic and all of the things that have fallen to us because of COVID-19. So tonight I do bring you 7 policies to be voted on tonight, which is allowable by board policy. These policies and recommended changes are approved and recommended for tonight by RFR, and you were given the red line policy in base camp last week. We have 7 policies. These policies deal with emergency management, virtual board meetings should they become needed, again, virtual and distance learning, telework, which has become essential when we have employees whose work is crucial to us, but they test positive for COVID-19, but are asymptomatic or have mild symptoms and they choose to do their full workload at home rather than use sick leave, and absenteeism in the event of all of these. So tonight we ask you to approve the recommended changes for policies 1175, 1195, 3005, 3100, 4030, 5000, and 5365.
Any discussion or questions?
Make a motion to approve?
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second, please call the roll.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Next item 43, Mr. Tolomeo.
Good evening, President Allen, Dr. Vinson, members of the board. I'm here to seek your approval to hire WRA Architects to serve as the architect for the field house renovation projects. We have a couple things we need to do out there to accommodate some new programs. Our girls wrestling program was very successful last year, and we need to make some modifications to the field house for that reason.
Discussion and questions?
Make a motion to approve?
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second, please call the roll.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.
Thank
you. Next item, Ms. Brassfield.
Are we ready? Okay, I didn't hear. Okay, Dr. Benson, President Allen, members of the board. This summer, Broken Arrow Public Schools had the opportunity to apply and write for the CARES Act ESSER grant. So I'm asking you to accept and approve the purchase of 950 new Chromebooks for Broken Arrow Virtual Academy and the elementary sites. The total cost to the district is $284,050 to be paid for with the CARES Act incentive grant that we received this summer.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Absolutely make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second, please call the roll.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette? Yes. Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Thank you.
Ms.
Thank
Brassfield,
you.
thank you very much for
Yeah.
all these things you're bringing up.
Yeah,
It's
come
wonderful.
anytime.
She gets to bring all the
She's
sunshine.
doing all the good stuff. Next item, Ms. Enoff.
Good evening, President Allen, Dr. Vinson, members of the board. Beginning a new fiscal year for our financial data. Typically, July is a pretty slow time as far as revenue and expense collections, as we're just gearing up for the start of a school year. But I did want to point out a couple outliers. that you might notice, especially with general fund. You'll notice in our ad valorem category, we received a significant payment from Wagner County, and typically, you know, our collection time is January when we receive our big lump sum payment for tax collections, but due to the pandemic, there were some delays in collections and reporting those dollars, and so that money was received to us after our fiscal year end date of June 30th, so that's why that revenue wasn't recorded in fiscal year 20 and was carried over into fiscal year 21. But that's not a negative thing at all for the district, because I do want to emphasize the importance of cash flow and having those funds in the bank disposable to us right now for these extraordinary one-time COVID-related expenses. The district is at a little over $200,000 right now in COVID expenses related to PPE and just changes in procedures and processes that we've been putting into place to get students and teachers back into the classroom. The other big outlier you'll notice on general fund is in our federal sources of collection. The timing of claims received, again, due to the pandemic and with the State Department, we did receive more prior year claims of our federal programs, title, special ed, in this new year. And so basically, again, what that means for us cash flow wise is those expenses were expended in fiscal year 20. We paid the salaries, paid for the supplies and the materials, but that revenue is coming to us this fiscal year. So again, as state aid is slow to start with the district, we're able to utilize those funds now to us and not have to necessarily dip into that ending fund balance, if that makes sense. Building fund, again, you can see ad valorem dollars receipted into this fund, and child nutrition with some of the summer feeding claims that were done. The expenditures in general fund, the big outlier with general fund is, as the board will recall, a couple months ago when we renewed our general liability and property insurance for the district, there was a major spike in our premiums, and so that is what accounts for that difference. And everything else is pretty much on track with where we were at this point last year. And next month, I'll be reporting some additional information on fund balance and cash flow projections going into the current fiscal year.
Any discussion or questions? Thank you, Ms. Eniff. Next item is new business. We have none. The next item will be to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn?
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second. Please call the roll.
Mr. Denton?
Yes.
Mr. Cockrell?
Yes.
Ms. Roulette?
Yes.
Mr. Majors?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes.